I do. I have a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And when I'm passionate about something, I usually really go for it. Yeah. I wasn't spiritual. I didn't even, I did the traditional church stuff and confirmation, but it was really when I started waking up in like 2000 that I started really working on myself and bringing my gifts to the world. And up until that time, I don't think I really thought about it. But my dad died early on, and I had a session that a friend had given me with a psychic. My dad came in and told me some things that I didn't even know. I had to like ask my mom about. So that was it. It was like, oh, there's more out there. And until that time, like even as a child, and I don't think I really wanted to be here on this planet. I didn't really think. I knew there was something more, and it just seemed like kind of boring. Yeah. And so when that started happening, it's like, wow, okay, there's cool stuff here to check out. And that kind of started me on a quest for self-discovery and really just try to discover some of the mysteries of the universe.
Yeah. So what was the beginning of the journey like for you? You had this reading, and all of a sudden it's like there's something out there.
Yeah, so, I had a few more, and I started exploring healing modalities. That was kind of the first thing. I had a class in Reiki, and I could feel the energy, and I was like, oh, wow, this is cool. And so I knew there was a piece of me that was supposed to, work with those energies. Again, later I got certified in pranic healing. I did get certified in Reiki, but I don't use it per se, but pranic healing was a really good one for me. New paradigm multidimensional transformation is a healing modality that I use in all my classes now. It was the healing modalities that really got me excited and jazzed early on.
What kinds of differences did you see in yourself doing these things, or in others?
Well, part of me didn't believe it, but other people would say, wow, you fixed my tooth, or oh, you fixed, and I was doing this as I was raising my family, and I was still working as a pharmacist, and it wasn't as accepted as it is now, so I didn't talk about it to most people. But we had this healing clinic that was free out of a chiropractic's office, and so I would go there once a week, and we'd do, we'd have patients we could work on that would just come, and so I had amazing comments. But there's a piece of me that's like, yeah, right, yeah, right. And I had this doubt. And so I just kept taking classes and reading books, and I knew it, but it still wasn't something that I wanted to like wear my shirt sleeve and, teach it. I thought I would teach it someday. I actually thought about becoming a pranic healing instructor or opening up a clinic. And with that, there's a Arhatic yoga track that teaches you really more about being a spiritual being, and it's sort of a spiritual approach to yourself. And so I took all those classes, and I traveled to a couple retreats with it. But then all of a sudden the healing clinic kind of fell apart, and I started bringing in Master Emoto, and that was actually really amazing.
And remind everybody about him.
So Master Emoto is a Japanese water crystal scientist that's written lots of books, Messages from Water. And that was probably one of the first things that happened when I had that psychic reading. I was told my soul works with him at night, and I should get the books. One thing led to another, and I basically got to go to his lab and tour his lab, and then he asked me if I'd bring him to Minnesota. So I had never done anything like that before.
Land of 10,000 lakes, water?
Yes,
this is perfect.
That was part of it, and he was doing a U.S. tour, but I got to know his family. I got to know him really well over the years, and we brought him to Minnesota. And I say we because I started a nonprofit, Acquiescence Resource, with 2 other women, and we together brought him to Minnesota in 2004, 5, 6, and then again in 2013, just before he passed. And his books really resonated with me about positive thinking. The words that we choose are so important. And we get caught up in our language, and it's easy to say something you don't even think makes a difference. But when you can change your words, it can start to change your life. And so that was pretty, it was important for me to kind of learn some of those skills and look at his work.
He was brilliant.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. And there was simplicity to his work too, which made it so accessible. So you went from one necessity for life to another necessity for life, from water to air.
Right. I always thought I would be doing something around water.
Yeah.
And maybe I will. And when I go to sacred sites or bring groups, I bring in the element of water a lot. We're blessing water, doing things with the water. But yeah, when I switched to the breath, I was kind of surprised, because that was about 2006 and 7 when I kind of started getting interested in other things, and was kind of on this journey to work on myself. And in 2008, I had my first facilitated breath session, and that's what really shifted me.
Help me understand that, because when I hear breath session, it's like, well, I've been breathing since the moment I was born.
Right,
So why would I need somebody to teach me how to breathe?
So that's the thing. Most people think they know how to breathe, but most people barely breathe. We use about 30% of our lung capacity. And if you are just breathing 24,000 times a day, most of it's subconscious. We use the back part of our brain, our reptilian brain. But when we make it conscious, we use the front part of our brain, and it can do so many things. So when you take a breath and you're aware of your breath, that makes it conscious. And so this particular modality, I had studied actually in pranic healing and arhatic yoga, some ancient breathing techniques and practices, and I had been doing them, and I was always kind of interested in the breath. Something had happened where I would do them on and off, I'd really good for a year or two, and then I would let them go, kind of like a lot of things. But so I'd sort of forgotten about the importance of the breath, but when I first had my first session, it was nothing like I'd ever experienced before with these other techniques.
Why? What was the difference?
I could feel the energy in my hands. I could feel the vibration going through my whole body. It was in my cells. I had been doing kind of a funny breathing technique. I wasn't doing it right, because the first time you try this, usually it's pretty mechanical. And I was trying to get it right. I was, I'm a doer, goer, and I was going to get it right. And by the time the teacher came around, the room was kind of spinning, and I was almost having this out-of-body experience. But he got me on track, and I figured it out. But I knew I needed help, because the next day, after my first breathing session, I was racing to work. I had people over at my house to do this, and I was up late, and I got up, late the next morning, and all of a sudden I'm late to work. And so then I realized I had to water my evergreens, and because they were blowing out my sprinkler that day. It was in the fall. And so I'm standing there holding the hose, and I noticed, I'm holding my breath. What's wrong with this? I just took a breathing class. So that was my first aha, that I had a default breathing pattern that everybody has. Whenever they're stressed out or in a hurry, they drop into this default pattern
of holding your breath.
Some people are jerky, some are partial, some hold their breath. Everybody has their own unique pattern. Your breath is like a fingerprint. It records everything in your life. Yeah, and so everybody's pattern is different. And
how does it record everything in my life?
So when you're little, you're usually born breathing openly and naturally. But as you start to go through life, at a very early age, things happen that you may think are traumatic. And you maybe have this shocked and surprised, like there's a monster under the bed. Or maybe you're hungry and your mom didn't come fast enough, and you have this feeling of, I'm not safe. And so when that happens, you change your breath in that moment. So some tissues shorten, other tissues lengthen, and that breath pattern becomes the norm. And then you go along and something else happens, and something changes in your body. So physically, you're actually having changes to the connective tissue around your diaphragm. So it doesn't work as openly as it should for a lot of people. Some people actually breathe backwards, and those people tend to breathe in the top third of their lungs all the time. About 30% of the population actually breathes backwards. And we all have it hardwired into our DNA for one specific thing. It's fight or flight. We take a short, quick breath in the top third of our lungs, and the hormones and the chemicals that are produced from fight or flight literally are produced all the time if you're breathing that way all the time. And it's enough to get you out of the way of the tiger in the jungle, but we don't need it in our everyday life. So
your body takes the cue and gives you those kinds of fight or flight chemicals. Wow. So can you undo that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, I love it when backwards breathers come to my classes or private sessions, because they have the most to gain. When we use our diaphragm properly, the vagus nerve that goes from the brain through the body actually goes through the diaphragm. So when we use our diaphragm properly and correctly, it triggers the relaxation response in the body. So there's techniques you can do that just calm you down. That's why one conscious breath can lower your cortisol levels, which is the main hormone that causes high blood pressure, causes the fight or flight. You do a few conscious breaths and do it in the right way, and it can really help you reduce stress and be more functional in the world, stop anxiety.
Wow, that's amazing. Something so common, so habitual.
And we forget.
Yeah,
we forget how easy it is to use our breath.
Well, tell me about the forgetting part, though. Does it take? How many times does it take to be instructed, to work with you?
So everybody is different. Everybody's different. But I say it's a journey, it's a practice. And once you discover what it really can do, to do it every day a little bit. I teach people and empower people to do this technique on their own. There's thousands of techniques on the planet, and I teach some of them. I've studied some of them. But I always fall back to soul breathing because it's based on the natural breath that you're born with and the natural breath that you die with. And we have cycles in nature where there's a period of work and a period of rest. So this technique actually has that period of work where you inhale and you rest on the exhale, and you do this continuously. And this continuous breath will set up a vibration in your body that is really what the foundation of this technique is about. So this vibration helps clear old patterns out of your cells, out of your field. And so depending on how many stuck patterns you have, it may take a little longer. Depending on how your breath pattern is, backwards breathers usually need to have a few more sessions because they've been doing it the wrong way and they have to retrain their diaphragm. But even in one session with me, there's lasting benefit. And I usually say it takes about 3 to 6 times to really start to master your breath. And usually after 10, 12, you got it and you can do it on your own. But I just taught a breath mastery class, and after 4 sessions, because it's over 2 days, people are pretty good. They're all kind of trained to each other doing this breath, and they come in kind of haggard and I don't know if I really can do this for 2 days, 4 sessions, and I take them through this step-by-step process, and by the end they're all doing it, and they're all saying, okay, I'm going to do this when I go home, I'm going to do a little bit every day. I mean, it's really fun to watch the transformation in people.
And what kind of shifts do they say that they're experiencing because of that?
All kinds of shifts. A lot of times there's shifts in abundance or health or relationships, because we all vibrate at a certain place. And when we do this conscious breath work, we literally permanently can increase our vibrations. So we start to attract what we want in our lives instead of what we don't want in our lives. So it takes a little bit of time for those things we don't want to kind of like shift away. But we start living at the level of our soul. That's why it's called soul breathing, because as we do this this breathing technique, it literally clears the old patterns out of your body, out of the physical body, out of your cells, out of your emotional and mental component, and it makes space for your soul to come more fully in.
Is that without, you don't have to sit down and identify this is what we're trying to get rid of. You allow your soul to be the captain.
Breath does it all. That's why I love this modality, because I'm just a breath facilitator. In Latin, facile means to make easy. So I work to make your breath easy. I keep you going with your breath. Breath knows exactly what you need. So there may be something you want, but there's some layers before that can happen to be cleared. And so your soul, your breath will start to work to clear those layers. And eventually what you want just starts to flow in.
So it's a real faith-filled kind of a modality.
You don't have to have any particular faith or religion. You just have to do it. That's what's so wonderful about it. I can meet people where they are at, and if they understand, spiritual practices, I can go to a real deep level with that. But if somebody just wants to run a better marathon or doesn't really understand, they want it for the health and the wellness and for their mental states, they don't have to know what it's doing. And the bonus can be that underneath, they may be a real 3D person that just doesn't understand woo-woo or spirituality or any of that. And all of a sudden they're doing this breathing and they may have a little opening, a little awakening, and they can say, oh my gosh, just like I did, in 2000. It's like, what? There's more out there. It's really, I feel like the breath is your fast track to enlightenment, if you want to call it enlightenment. It puts people really on the course for ascension. We are breath. It's so simple. We just have to tap back into who we are and remember that breath is part of our spiritual nature. It's that permanent part of ourselves that connects our physical body to our soul. And when we tap into it, it can give us guidance, it can give us spiritual gifts and intuition, clairvoyance opens up. But over time, we put so many blocks in our way because we just do, we're human. And so it takes us back to that simple place where things don't have to be so hard. And we just have to trust that the breath will show us what's next.
You've convinced me.
Yeah.
I also want to know why you've chosen to be a part of the Community for Higher Consciousness. What drew you to that group?
Well, I've been hearing about it for a while, and I know a few people in it. And it's just, higher consciousness is so important right now. And I've always been, really since the beginning of my waking up, wanting to help people raise their consciousness, because there's so much out there that's fun and exciting, and it doesn't have to be these scary, fearful, dark things that are coming on the planet right now. And there's lots of ways to wake people up, and it could be through healing, it could be through crystals, it could be through prayer, it could be through meditation, and I've explored a lot of those. And I find that the breath is the one thing that really raises your consciousness quickly. And so since I've been on this quest ever since probably 2000 to help people raise their consciousness, it just seemed fitting that I joined this group. Everybody gets it, everybody's there. Everybody felt like family to me. So it's a really wonderful group, and they're doing all really wonderful things in the world. So
gives you hope.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, if we can all get together, and the more I can get other people to raise their consciousness up, it's going to help the whole planet. It's all humanity needs to raise up. How you breathe is how you live your life, and if your breath is deep, full, relaxed, connected, and flowing, your life will be like that. We already talked about how your breath is like your thumbprint. It's unique to you. But as you go through life, things happen, and humans really don't like to feel. We don't like to feel our emotions. So instead, we think them and we bury them, and eventually as it gets into our cellular nature. And we don't even know we have emotions, but eventually we're triggered and it just pops out. So at the first layers of what this soul breathing work does is it clears those stuck patterns. And when you asked, what shifts people have, I would say they're more able to be in the same situation that they were yesterday, where they got angry, and say, oh, wow, I don't feel anger anymore. And then they evolve, and the same situation happens again, and it's like, I hardly ever even felt that. So we're literally clearing the emotional layers and those emotional patterns, and unwinding them out of the cells and winding them out of the body. And so people that normally would be triggered by a certain thing don't feel it anymore. And then there's another one and another one. But eventually you clear those layers. At the same time, it's clearing your subconscious mind. So the thoughts you think today were probably the same thoughts you thought the day before and the day before, and they actually trace that back to when you were going to school and you had to use your brain, and you left your emotional body behind at about age 5. We know a lot of people walking around with an emotional quotient of about age 5, right? So the mental body kind of starts kicking into gear as we become aware of our surroundings and our environment, and somebody says, oh, why'd you do that? And we shrink, and we start to be our best own critic, and we have self-judgment, self-doubt, and that is going to be cleared at the same time as well. So when we clear out those layers, those stratas, that allows our soul to anchor more fully in, and we can live at that soul level where we are in the flow, where we receive guidance, and we just have this knowing that this is the right thing. But on the lower levels or the beginning levels, not lower, the beginning levels, people come to me in all sorts of different ranges. Some people have had abuse, some people have had sickness, some people have, a history of a lineage that's really messed up. And all of them are benefiting by the breath because they're clearing whatever pattern they need to clear. But eventually, after you do this a while, and everybody's different, you get to that place where you're pretty clear. And that's when this work really becomes fun for them and me.
Right.
Because as you're doing this continuous breath technique, you increase your vibration, and it allows you to tap into the vibrations that are coming in from the sun right now. The sun has these new vibrations that have never been on this planet before.
Right.
And they're rewiring our bodies. And so when we're clear, we can actually take them in and use them to propel us to this next level of vibration, this new platform where the earth is going to. It's different now. I mean, it used to be we could be so bright and light we'd disappear. But now humanity is doing this thing as a collective. We're ascending collectively. And so we've got to get everybody on board to raise up so we can all hold the light, so we can all go to a higher level of vibration. And that's why just breathe. If you just breathe, you're going to start to work on those things. But as a group, when I take people to sacred sites or do planetary service, we do breathing together. And most people that come have had a few sessions, and they're pretty high vibrational anyway. And so the work we can do together to help the earth bring more light or clear stuck patterns in the earth is phenomenal. I mean, some of the work we do as a group is really amazing. And I teach a lot of group classes, and people come at all different levels, but I find the universe gives me the right group. I always have either people that really need help on, their emotions, or people that really get it and they're just ready to go for whatever they can do to increase their own consciousness. So it's a beautiful thing. And the breath has taught me so much. It's just like I get out of the way and the right things just show up.